So, smart locks. Not a huge fan, or at least I wasn't. I know, it's kind of strange. I'm a big home automation guy and a big HomeKit guy, but I never really understood the value of a smart lock. I had tested them in the past and was never really convinced. I've lived with one for the past 4 months. I'm converted. Let's look at why. Greetings Internet, it's Dustin again with my HomeKit Home, back again with another one for you. In this video, it's all about smart locks. Well, really one in particular. That's the Vocolinc T-Guard smart lock. So what we'll do in this video is we'll unbox the smart lock. We'll look at how to set it up in the LinkWise app. We'll look at what we can do with it in the Apple Home app. And then I'll give you my final thoughts on this lock in general. I do want to thank the folks over at Vocolinc for providing this smart lock at a discounted rate for this review, but you will be getting my honest opinion about it. So I think that about wraps up everything I have to say to get started. Let's get into the unboxing. Well, there's not really much to say about the box here. As you can see, it is a HomeKit exclusive accessory. In fact, it also works over Bluetooth, so you want to be aware of that. If you plan on using this lock with automations, you want to make sure that it is within range, about 15 feet of a home hub. And we can see we have our paperwork here, which includes our HomeKit setup code as well as our installation instructions. But Vocolinc did make a really good video on how to install the T-Guard, and I will link that in the description box down below. So as I struggle here to get this thing open, we'll pull it out of the box and we can see it's a pretty slick looking smart lock, I have to say. Getting rid of all the packaging here, so we get rid of the plastic, and we can see it's pretty well packed as well. You can see nice black hardware, so we'll put that off to the side. We can see the front of the lock, which has its touchpad and also its standard key mechanism there with the cylinder as well. If we open our second box here, we can see that we have all of the necessary mounting hardware. So we have our strike plate, our keys, which I'll go ahead and add those to my pocket because I don't want to lose those. We have our deadbolt cylinder here. We have all of the screws and all of the necessary accoutrement, if you will, for installing the device. You know, honestly, I didn't really have any issues installing this. Some things that you'll want to keep in mind is you want to make sure that your back sets are correct, that the thickness of your door is also correct and that meets the requirements for the lock. You'll also want to check to make sure that your bore hole, this is the hole that has been drilled into the door, is the correct size. I didn't, and I had some issues, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and set up the device now. So here we are in the Vocolinc app, and what I like about the app, one of the things, is how easy it is to add a device. So from that standard launch screen, we always have that plus button, so it makes it pretty easy. So we'll go ahead and track down the lock itself. We want to make sure we check the little circle. This is kind of Vocolinc's way of ensuring that everything is good to go before you start to set up the device so that you don't have any issues. And then we'll scan our HomeKit code, which is located on the back on the inside part of the device, or we can also use our paperwork that was included. And just takes a few moments there, as we saw, and we are very familiar with this screen, so we can choose which room it's going into. Usually I stick to the default room, but I think this time I might actually change that, and I think we're going to put this into the dining room from the get-go. Another recommendation that I would have for the lock, at least in my particular circumstance, is to add it to your favorites. Now, I'm pretty selective about which devices I actually add to my favorites, considering that we only have a limited number of accessories categories and scenes that we can use in Control Center, so I'm pretty selective about that, but I did add this to my favorites, and it's actually the #1 accessory. Well, now that we have gotten the lock all set up and squared away, let's take this puppy for a spin. And here we are in the Linkwise app, and we can see that if we just simply tap on the lock, it will in fact unlock, and by default we do receive notifications that it has been unlocked. Might take a little while to get there, but in fact you will receive those notifications. Notice kind of at the beginning there was a little bit of lag in terms of the notifications, but that did kind of resolve itself over time, and I get them at a pretty quick rate at this point. So as you can see there, again with the notifications. So let's look at our authorizations. This is one of the key things that we don't get with Apple's Home app, and these are all the different codes that we can add to the Vocolinc app so that we can put those into the keypad. So we can see here that we can actually choose the code ourselves, and we can put in between 4 and 8 digits there, which is a pretty useful tool, especially with the 8 digits, making it more complicated for people to figure out the code. We can also restrict the frequency here. This is a pretty interesting feature, I think. So we can, really restrict how many times somebody can actually, open the door, which I think is pretty interesting. We can also look at and restrict access to the lock in terms of a specific date. So if we have a time frame that somebody needs access to it, we can restrict that. We can also restrict which days of the week they can or cannot access the lock. So if we have maybe a babysitter that comes over on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and let's say that maybe that babysitter should be coming over only from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., then we can also set that there. So that's pretty convenient, I think. And one way that we know that all of this has been set up well is that we receive a notification that says that the door or the lock was locked. So let's go ahead and look at the next tab, which is our activity log. So this is pretty useful. It actually breaks things down into kind of manual opening of the lock, or manual unlocking, physical. We also have through the app, we have Siri, we have also information on who did it. And I know that it's kind of hard to tell there because we have white on white, and this is one of the things that I dislike about the particular activity log here, is that the letters are white on white. Because I had a difficult time seeing it, I couldn't see that there's a little button there at the beginning. I thought that this was just a feature that didn't work. So that's something that I would improve about the app, is making the contrast between the colors a bit higher. In terms of the settings, we have a few different settings here. We have the auto lock setting, which is one of my favorites. It will auto lock after 30 seconds of being opened. We also can adjust the sensitivity of the touchpad. We can set it into admin mode, which would really only allow access to you. And then we can also put it into away mode, which will disable the keypad. So let's look at it in Apple's Home app here, and it's pretty straightforward. We can lock and unlock the door. We can long press on it, and we can do the same. We can lock and we can unlock the door as well. We do receive those notifications. Again, a little bit laggy here at the beginning, but that did clear up after some time. I think it was just an issue of, HomeKit receiving those signals right off the bat. It took it a little while to wake up, but as you can see, we get the notifications. So we can adjust the name of the smart lock. I went ahead and changed it to my front door. Again, we talked about favorites already. It's in my dining room, which is where the front door to my home is. But really, that's about it in terms of what we can do in Apple's Home app. We will look at automations in a different video. I have put up a video about how to lock and unlock a smart lock with a button or a switch. If you want to check that out, we'll also leave that video in the description box down below. So there are the basic ins and outs of the Vocolinc T-Guard smart lock. I am a smart lock convert. I had problems with smart locks in the past, not for security or for any of these reasons, but they just never really made sense to me. Why would you spend so much money to not have a key, but you still need to unlock the door with your hand? That never really made a whole lot of sense to me. Also, where I live here in Mexico, we have a different style of lock that's primarily used. So we use a rim or a mortise style lock for most of the doors, and as far as I know, there are no HomeKit locks that support this particular style. Also on that front, here in Mexico, most of the homes have an exterior gate as well as an interior door, and so regardless of any smart lock that you have, since I haven't found a smart lock that is 100% weatherproof, well, I still have to carry keys. But the T-Guard really convinced me otherwise. One of the things that I really do like about this particular smart lock is its versatility. Anyone who's using it has a way to access it in whatever way that they prefer. If it's the touchpad, which allows up to 30 different codes that you can really restrict who has access to the lock and when. This works out really pretty well whenever my mother-in-law is dog sitting Bruno and I'm out of town. I can go in and make sure that she can't access when you don't really want her to. Also, the T-Guard can be engaged and disengaged with the use of a standard KW1 key form factor. So anyone who is more inclined to this style of door locks will be happy with this. Say, for example, my landlord. So the place where I'm at now, I'm currently renting, and my landlord was gracious enough to allow me to install the smart lock, but with one condition, that he was still able to access the apartment if he needed to. So I was able to just make him a copy of the key. I also gave him a code, but I made him a copy of the key and everything is fine. Now for me and the smarts of this lock. So with home automation, we can run automations that will unlock the door when arriving and leaving, and we'll look at a video next week on how to do that and some different tips that I have for that. However, we can use Siri to open the door. We do have to give a confirmation with Home, but not a big deal. We can just simply talk to Siri, or we can unlock the phone and everything is fine. So we can use something like Control Center, which is my preferred method. So I just open Control Center and I unlock the button there. I do sometimes need to verify with Touch ID or Face ID, but again, not a huge deal. I guess some of the downsides to this lock are its Bluetooth connectivity. It's a really solid connection once that connection's made, but it can be a bit laggy if it's just kind of waking up. Another thing, that if you do plan on running automations, you want to make sure that you have a home hub that's relatively close, about 15 feet to the lock, so that those automations run smoothly and you can trust that they will be running the way you want them to. In some homes, this can be an issue if your front door isn't within where you would typically have a home hub, so that's kind of a bummer there. In full transparency, I did have some issues with this lock jamming up. What seemed to happen is I would unlock it with Siri or with the Home app, and then if I tried to lock the door manually, then the lock would kind of jam up and would just kind of stop working, and I'd have to fiddle with it using the Linkwise app or using Apple's Home app to engage and disengage it a few times before it came back online and was working properly again. The upside to this is that I contacted support for Vocolinc, and literally I kid you not, literally within days, the issue was resolved. Everything was fine. There were no lengthy phone calls, just a few emails back and forth, and we finally got the issue resolved. So big shout out to the support team at Vocolinc. But other than that, I am extraordinarily happy with this smart lock, and like I mentioned, I'm a smart lock convert. I still carry keys, but that's because, like I mentioned earlier, the gate. But it is pretty convenient that when I'm, taking Bruno out for a walk, that I can just shut the door and I know that 30 seconds later, it's going to lock itself with the auto lock feature. So that's one less thing that I have to do, which I'm always pretty happy about. So do you have the T-Guard smart lock in your HomeKit arsenal, or do you have another smart lock? Let us know in the comments down below. Also in the description box, you'll find a link to the T-Guard smart lock if you're thinking about picking one up. We would appreciate the support. Also in the description box, you'll find links to all of our social media and a link to the Vocolinc website so you can get more information about their entire HomeKit line of products. Finally, in the description box, there will be links to all of the videos that I mentioned in this video, as well as a link to the blog over at myhomekithome.com. Don't forget to come and check us out on social media at myhomekithome. If you found the video useful, give us a big thumbs up if you would. If you didn't find it useful, let us know how we can improve these videos in the comments section down below. And if you did like the video and haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of our new content as soon as it's released. Well, my producer's telling me that we're about out of time for this one. I do thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next video. But until then, this has been Dustin with My HomeKit Home.